You're listening to the Go Getter Podcast. I'm your host, Candace Janae. I'm a digital marketing and automation strategist and business coach. I'm the CEO and founder of Epic Fab Girl, where we help Christian women entrepreneurs market and scale their service-based businesses beyond six figures as they grow deeper in their faith. So whether you're a coach, speaker, or a service provider, this podcast will drop gems, bringing you tips, strategies, and stories from experts to help you take your life, business, and relationship with God to the next level. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Go Getter Podcast. I'm your host, Candace Janae, and I'm so excited that y'all are here for season 3 of the Go Getter Podcast. Literally, it means so much to me that you guys have supported us over the years. And I thought, what better way to really honor you guys than to just take some time to share with you guys a little bit more about my personal six-figure journey and share with you guys some tips on how you can build your business as a kingdom entrepreneur that's a speaker, coach, or service provider to the six-figure mark and beyond. All right. So I'm really excited about that. And literally this podcast, this season, we are going to be bringing to you so many more entrepreneurs, kingdom-minded entrepreneurs that have built their businesses to six figures and beyond. Lots of our interviews are going to be way more focused. So like y'all are really in for an amazing treat this season. And if you were a part of our Millions in the Marketplace boot camp that we had, I think it was called the Millions in the Marketplace Challenge. If you were a part of that at the end of 2023, then you know it was straight fire. We're bringing you episodes from that with people like Lamar Tyler, Ashley Kirkwood, like incredible people who are making millions in the marketplace. We're bringing you those episodes and those sessions into podcast episodes. So I'm just giving y'all a sneak peek of what y'all got to look forward to. And just know that if you came across this podcast, that it's not by happenstance. God literally wanted you to hear this episode. God wanted to make sure that you knew that he was calling you to something greater, to something bigger, to something so much more amazing than you could have ever imagined. So I'm telling y'all, today's episode is going to be really incredible. I can't make any promises that I won't cry because, baby, I'm about to tell my story. I'm about to share with you guys how I built a six-figure business and just my personal journey of getting there. So if you didn't already know, I'm Candace Janae. You guys know probably by now that I'm the CEO of Epic Fab Girl. But before I was the CEO of Epic Fab Girl, I was this girl who I'm from Chicago. You know, I had went really kind of the American dream route where, you know, they say, go to school, do well in school, get a good paying job. I did all that, bought my first house by the age of 25, did all this amazing stuff, but I was still finding myself to be completely miserable in this corporate job. Now, granted, there was a lot of things that I did like about the job that I had when I was in corporate America. I used to travel. So literally I graduated from undergrad and got my MBA back in 2014. And so I immediately got a really great paying job for in the digital marketing technology consulting world. I worked for Accenture, which was an incredible company to work for. But there were things about that job that I just could not stand. Like I couldn't stand working 16-hour days. Like I just was not trying to be, you know, up at the crack of dawn and then also go to sleep at 11 p.m. Like I needed balance. And so around that time, God started dealing with me about, you know, actually walking off of my corporate job and going into a full-time, you know, entrepreneurial journey. But before I even launched Epic Fab Girl, I just wanted to help other people. I wanted to help business owners be successful. And I also wanted to help kingdom-minded people really position themselves to make more money because I was sick and tired of seeing, you know, like I come from a family of entrepreneurs. And, you know, as Black people, you know, I'm from Chicago. Like there's this, I always use this example of this place called Eat and Run. It was like this really great chicken spot on the south side of Chicago, but I could never understand why there wasn't another Eat and Run on another block in the city. Like, why is the best chicken around only found in one place? And I used to get annoyed seeing these businesses that I knew were amazing businesses that would end up flopping and like weren't multiplying. So I'm like, I want to help people of color make more money in business and actually build sustainable businesses. So I always kind of had that in my mind for down the line, but I kind of pushed that off. So when I was working in corporate, I was traveling the world, I was doing my own thing, working for these incredible brands. But God started to deal with me about me doing what He had told me to do. And so I ended up starting out Epic Fab Girl in 2016. I had pretty much thought about it all of 2015. And then finally launched out in 2016 with a website. And really, the purpose of Epic Fab Girl at that time was to help women, women of faith, Christian. It wasn't even about entrepreneurs at that point. It was to help women of faith go after their dreams fearlessly, right? And like pursue purpose. And so what it evolved into eventually was helping entrepreneurs. But when I quit my job in 2017, we weren't making any money with Epic Fab Girl. Epic Fab Girl just so happened to be a blog where we were, we had over 30 writers that, wrote for the blog that would share their experiences about being a Christian woman, but it wasn't really focused. And then when we started to get more focused was when I kind of quit my job in corporate America. So I quit my job September 2017 with no backup plan, and no Epic Fab Girl was not making any money, like money that was substantial. So I literally started driving Uber, like to make ends meet. Like I was just doing all these things, like everything you could think of, I was trying to do to like make money on the side while I was trying to figure out entrepreneurship. And so I know for me personally, because I knew like I was really smart, had went to a really great school, had went to a top institution. I had my master's in business. Like I had all this stuff. I had run a business of my own, which was a hair extensions company when I was in undergrad. I just knew I was going to be super successful and build a six-figure business as soon as I quit my job. But baby, that did not happen. So I'm going to tell y'all how long it actually took and like what that journey looked like for me. And for those of y'all who are listening and you're like, okay, like I really want to hit, $10,000 plus months in my business, I have an amazing resource for y'all that y'all can actually go and run and download now. If you go to gogettermembership.com/blueprint, you'll be able to get that. And it'll literally give you everything that you need. It's the 5-figure launch blueprint. It's so that you can launch out and get $10,000 in a single launch or more, 10,000 or more in a single launch. And that's a resource I would have loved to have when I was first starting, because when I tell y'all, baby, I was struggling when I quit my job. So I started creating content, hosting events, doing all of this really amazing stuff, but my bank account wasn't really matching. So 2018 looked like me getting asked to speak pretty much all over. I was getting flown out to speak different places. I also was, taking on clients. And so the clients that I was helping them build their businesses and their brands. But I was really just doing kind of like one-off, like you pay me for a coaching session, if that made sense. So it was like, oh, I charge this much per hour. You pay me for a coaching session. People would get coached. They thought it was amazing, but then they weren't really getting the results. And I think this is a really good, for those who are coaches, I think this is a really good point that is important to pay attention to, is that sometimes people need support over time. So it wasn't that my coaching wasn't good. It was just like I wasn't giving people the support that they needed. So, back then it was like I was doing these one-off sessions, and one session is enough like for somebody to get a little bit of clarity, but they're going to have another question after that. And so that's when I started to realize I needed to put together kind of coaching programs. But it wasn't until I think I probably launched one of my first coaching programs in like the end of 2018, 2019, but they weren't, the mistake that I made there was that I didn't price it premium. So I was, having these programs for like $500 and stuff like that. And at the time, let me tell y'all why that didn't work. That didn't work because I didn't have a massive audience. And it didn't work because, I would need multiple, like so many people to buy into this $500 course in order for me to make, $10,000. So I was having these programs, but it was like I was doing all this work, and then, maybe one or two people would sign up. But imagine if instead of charging, the $500, I instead charged $2,500. If I got that from two people, that would have been $5,000 versus the $1,000 that I got. And so I didn't learn that lesson really until 2020, because 2020 was the year that I literally, y'all, I'm telling y'all, I started the year of 2020 with no money in the bank. Like, you may have heard my story with Go Getter Conference, but in 2019, Go Getter Conference was in September. I put literally the last money that I had and had made from business back into Epic Fab Girl with the intent and the goal and the expectation that I was going to make the money back, and literally hosted this conference, launched from the stage. Nobody bit. Like, I'm telling y'all, like, when I launched my offer from the stage, it was like an offer about like how to be good on Instagram. It was something about that. And when I launched that from the stage, nobody opted into it. Except for one girl during our VIP day, she opted into it, and she was like, and it was an $1,800 offer. She said yes to it, but when she said yes to it, literally the next day she asked for a refund. And we hadn't even started the program, which was so crazy. And so I walked away from Go Getter Conference that year where, my car ended up getting repossessed. I ended up getting foreclosure papers on my home. I had over $11,000 in debt. Like, that year for me was really insane. And I was really incredibly depressed. Like, I'm telling y'all, I was so sad. Like, it was the worst. It was the pits, but God was with me every single step of the way. And I remember God telling me around that time that, when I'm following him, I'm never off track. So even though it may seem like, oh, right now it's probably a good idea to go back to corporate and get a corporate job, God was just like, no, stay the course. Because as you guys are hearing this, I want y'all to understand I was still making impact. I was still being obedient to God. I was still doing what I could with what I had. But then 2020 was the year that God was like, no, I'm about to shift everything.
If you've learned anything from this podcast, I know you're going to love the Go Getter Confidential Click at GoGetterMembership.com. It's a global membership community for Christian women entrepreneurs to connect, build wildly profitable service-based businesses, and grow their faith. So whether you're just getting started with an idea or you already have an established brand and you want to lay the foundation for six-figure income, the Go Getter membership is just what you need. With expert masterclasses, monthly prayer, and tons of courses and downloads, your business will be better because of it. Entrepreneurship isn't easy, but this community will help you go from feeling stuck to clear and motivated. Join today at GoGetterMembership.com and save 50% off your first 3 months when you use code podcast at checkout. We'll see you inside.
So in 2020, I started the year out with no money in the bank. And then that year at Go Getter Conference, or we had a Go Getter Confidential Virtual Summit. It was the second time we hosted the summit. And in a matter of 8 days, we made $30,000. Like, y'all, it was the craziest thing ever. Like, I just sat and watched $30,000 be poured into my bank account in a matter of 8 days. And I realized that God was up to something. So the first way that I made that money, we made that from selling digital replays for our virtual summit. And so it was like $47. And it was at that point that I realized that if you're going to do the volume game, you got to have big volume. You got to have something of value for people to want to opt into. So I realized like, oh, okay, if I have a $47 product, a lot of people can, that if they're very interested in purchasing it, then if you have volume for that, then you can make, a lot of money in a short period of time. But then I also realized, because we had a higher ticket thing that we ended up selling. It wasn't super high. It wasn't high ticket, but it was like our membership. And that was recurring revenue over time. And I saw how that revenue really built up our business. Shortly after that, with my other business, at the time, I ran a marketing consulting firm that was named after me, Candace. And basically, that's when I started putting together high ticket offers. My first high ticket offer was a $7,500 offer, basically teaching people the same thing that I used to be teaching people for, $100 a session. I took that information and put it into a structured program over a period of time and said, hey, here's the price point, $7,500. And y'all, I literally made $31,000 from 4 clients. How that got broken down: one client paid me $10,500 because she was a private client. One client paid me $7,500 and 2 people paid me $6,500. And that was in 2020. And I realized okay, now I've cracked the code. I can literally make, you know, have a 5-figure launch, not just from low price digital products, but also from high ticket stuff. And so that's why I spend my days like literally teaching other people how to build 6-figure businesses, because I literally started with $0. Like, I started in a place where I had no money and I didn't know how to make money from that. And so that's why I'm very like intentional about the work that we do here at Epic Fab Girl, which is really helping y'all like, understand that no, you don't have to have all the stuff you think you need to have. But yes, like God will blow your mind. Like, do you know how God blew my mind in the midst of all of that? Like, God blew my mind. I'm telling y'all, like, I know what it feels like to have foreclosure papers. Like, I'm telling y'all, like, I got the corporate job in 2014, bought the house in 2016. At 25, it was a big deal. Bought a house on my own, all this stuff. But for that same house, literally to be given like foreclosure papers on that same house years later, like that left a pit in my stomach. But I remember when I was going through that, God was like, I'm never going to leave you. You're not going to lose your house. And literally later that year, a few months later, when I had to go to foreclosure court in February of 2020, and you guys can see my book back there. It's Bold and Courageous. I talk about it in the book. But literally, I walked in to the courtroom, and the woman, the judge, literally sat there and said, you haven't paid, but I'm not going to set a new court date. And I didn't know what that meant, but she was like, you can go home today. And I was like, all right, cool. That was February 2020. March 2020, the pandemic rolled around. What happened in the pandemic? They ceased foreclosures. Foreclosures could not happen. They had to pause foreclosures. So literally, I felt like, and my dad even told me this. He was like, if you remember nothing else, remember that God will literally stop the whole world for you. Like, and I really felt that in my soul, because I'm like, God used the pandemic to save my house from being literally like foreclosed on. The full story, y'all can hear it later. I did, never lose my house. I was able to sell my house, all the things, but God positioned me in 2020 to not only make 6 figures in business, but coach other women on how to build 6-figure businesses. Now, the most amazing part about that is I didn't just coach them, they actually got the results. I have so many clients now that, have built 6-figure businesses. And even like they built them in 2020. I've helped countless women build 6-figure businesses. And that's really why I'm doing what I do today. Again, I mentioned earlier, but I want to say this again. I have an amazing resource. If you have not already downloaded it, please download it. Go to gogettermembership.com/blueprint. It is the 5-figure launch blueprint. It is an amazing resource that's going to really break down at a systematic level how you can position yourself to have 5-figure launches. And so for me, I like to 5-figure launch every single month, right? Like my average revenue as we're recording this is around $30,000 to $40,000 a month. At the end of 2023, we were having consistent $50,000 months as well. But I just want to let y'all know that you can have 5-figure months as a business owner, and that God desires you to have even more than that. But I like to break things down and make it systematic and give you guys something that will be helpful for you and reasonable for you to utilize in the long run. Okay, I'm getting tongue tied, but we here though. But one of the biggest lessons I had to learn in terms of the journey to building a 6-figure business is that mindset is one of the most important things. Like you literally have to believe that you can do it. You have to believe that what you're bringing to the table is enough, and that, and that you're incredible, and that you deserve to be paid premium prices. Like even now, our mastermind is multiple 5 figures. Like we have a program over $30,000 is the investment. And it wasn't easy for me to put that price point on there, because I'm kind of like, I went through my own personal struggles of like, will people pay this? But y'all, I got receipts on receipts on receipts of people that I've helped them in business. And I had to understand that the value that I bring to the table for people is so premium that I can charge that. Now, not only am I coaching my clients in our mastermind and doing all this amazing stuff, but I put them we take these luxurious retreats, we take these luxurious trips to places out of the country, and even we bring the most incredible speakers to teach them. And we're literally like in the weeds of their businesses. So $30,000 is really a great investment for them. So I say all this to say that mindset is so important, because you have to position yourself to be in the right mindset to even be able to charge that much and to be willing to charge that much. And that's why I say, even at, if you're trying to get to your first six figures, it's so important to really just make sure that you're in the right place in your mind so that you can get the clients that you want to get. The other really important thing that I'll say as you're journeying to six figures is to have community. Like, I'm telling y'all, community is everything. And I say community because, the Bible talks about that there's safety in a multitude of counsel. And it's really important to have community that, because I think a lot of us can, especially as entrepreneurs, you probably know what it feels like to like tell somebody your vision and they be like, well, is somebody going to pay that? Or that's too expensive, or somebody shoots down your idea. But there's something about being in a community of people who are, rooting you on, who have the right mindset, even about business. Like, all of that is really important. And it's also really important to have coaches and mentors who will help you grow and build, right? So even for me, I always invest in other coaches. Like, I've invested in amazing coaching programs over the years that have helped me build and grow my business. And those coaching programs have helped me to shift into my six figures. So I've had countless coaches that have helped me really refine so many things, whether it's my mindset or my processes or different things about running a business. And that really helped me on my journey. So my goal for this entire episode was to give you an idea of what my six-figure journey looked like. But I really hope that you could have paid attention to the timeline, right? I quit my job in 2017. And then in 2020, that's when I made my first six figures. But a lot of why I do what I do is so that it don't have to take you that long, right? Like, you don't have to learn from the silly mistakes that I made. Like, I'm going to give you the blueprint. I'm going to give you the tea. And so y'all know we always host amazing challenges and boot camps and things like that inside the Go-Getter community at Epic Fab Girl. So we're always going out of our way to make sure that we are giving you valuable information that can help you grow, because that information can literally change the entire trajectory of your life and business. All right. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Go-Getter podcast. Again, I'm your host, Candace Janae. Thank y'all so much for being here, for rocking with us. And don't forget to continue to share the love with your friends and the people that you know may need to hear this podcast. All right. See you on the next episode of the Go-Getter podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Go-Getter podcast. If you love this conversation, you're going to love the panels and workshops that are at Go-Getter Conference. It's our premier event of the year, and it happens annually. It's going to help you market and monetize your God-given ideas and connect with women from across the globe. Head over to gogetterconference.com to check it out right now. And just for staying until the end of this episode, we have a special gift for you, the Go-Getter Plan and Profit Workbook. This workbook is going to help you plan your income for the year. So head to gogetterpodcast.com/plan and profit to get your copy. And don't forget to drop a 5-star review if you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you on the next episode of the Go-Getter Podcast.